We are Rogue Media Sports.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card, you can earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases you want and purchases you need. That means you earn on what you want, like trying out that new workout class, and 2% cash rewards on what you need, like a foam roller for your sore muscles. That's the beauty of the Active Cash Credit Card. It's ready when you are, with unlimited 2% cash rewards. The Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. That's real life ready. Terms apply. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/activecash.
It is Matt Mosley, and it is the Doomsday Podcast, and we're just moments after the first round of the NFL Draft. We are sitting in a suite. Thank you, Mark Murray, for making this happen, and we are high atop AT&T Stadium right now, and Ed Werder, who's been doing some great work for Westwood One, interviewed everybody basically that was here and got drafted. Ed talked to them, and Ed, we'll get right into this Cowboys pick. I will say this, boy, controversy of the night. We wondered, okay, how are the tweets, the racist tweets from the high school years of Josh Allen, what will that do to him? And then where will Rosen go in this draft? And then Josh Rosen falls down to number 10, and Ed, he was not happy about this. He was not pleased, and I know you got to talk to him about it, and it was very, we'll hear some of this, but it was very interesting audio when you visited with him.
The Arizona Cardinals traded up to the 10th spot to get him, but that made him the fourth quarterback off the board. And, you know, most scouts and coaches I talked to felt like, and Troy Aikman told us last week on the podcast, this is the most ready to play quarterback that there is in this draft, probably the best passer in the draft, and yet there were all these questions about his ability to interact with teammates properly and gain their respect and be a leader. And Josh Rosen was quite upset. I'm going to let him describe his own emotions, but he is a fantastically motivated guy right now as he goes to the Arizona Cardinals, because he said the 9 picks in front of me were mistakes. So that's the kind of attitude the UCLA quarterback is taking to this. Now, a lot of people think that proves, you know, that he has this attitude that he's entitled. I don't think it's all that different. It's insulting to the other 9 players who went ahead of him. I'll give you that. But is it all that different in its essence than what Tom Brady said when he was drafted 199th and said to Robert Kraft, "This will be the best pick you ever made"? That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, and boy, you were right on top of it and got to visit with a lot of these guys. Rosen was interesting. I was there after you talked to Leighton Vander Esch. I mean, Ed, they came to you first, and then they brought them to the rest of us. And so we'll get to hear from Leighton Vander Esch, the Cowboys pick at 19. And you will not believe, Ed, the people I ran into tonight in the media, and then as I made my way around and just talking to Cowboys fans, how many folks look forward to the Doomsday Podcast. Friedman, will you please play the music? All right, there it is, and it is time, Ed, as we come to you live from AT&T Stadium. Leighton Vander Esch, the Cowboys pick, Boise State. Ed, you're from Colorado. This kid's from Idaho. Do you know anything about 8-man football? I mean, this kid grew up playing on an 8. I mean, that's like Jack Pardee stuff. I mean, the legendary Jack Pardee came from 6-man football. It is hard for any college team to go look at an 8-man player and go, okay, we think this guy can come help us.
And he's the first player with an 8-man football background to actually be invited to attend the NFL draft. And so then he winds up getting picked 19th, yet another Boise State player that the Cowboys have. So if he doesn't work out as a player, they can make him a coach like they've did with Kellen Moore. But he comes from a very small town in Idaho. Didn't play anything more than 8-man football until he played major college football, which is astonishing. I mean, it really does tell you that this is really a unique player to be able to make that kind of a transition and to get the attention, like you said, of college recruiters to get a Division I scholarship like he did. So there were obviously some other opportunities. Leighton Vander Esch is a guy that the Cowboys were connected to all along by many people. Derwin James, the safety from Florida State, was another. And many people thought that the Cowboys would try and trade up to get him, that he might go as high as 7th. In fact, he didn't go nearly that high, and he slid down to within 2 or 3 picks of where the Cowboys were, and Jerry Jones said they had no thought whatsoever of going to get him. So he says Leighton Vander Esch was their guy all along. I think the one thing that this does for them is it gives them a guy that presumably they can still compete with if they lose Sean Lee. Now, obviously, they think Sean Lee and he are going to be on the field at the same time. How this impacts Jalen Smith is going to be an interesting thing to watch. I think this suggests that they know now, based on last year's experience, not to put too much on Jalen Smith.
Even though Stephen Jones, in his comments leading up to the draft, is still dead set on saying Jalen Smith is making huge progress and he's still a big player, this tells you a lot. You're right about what the Cowboys think. Now, Ed, this is the time. You were with Westwood One, and I was located near you tonight, and it was good to see you at work. And all those guys were coming to you first, and we have the opportunity. We had one of the first interviews because of your Westwood One work, and let's credit those guys. Who is the guy I met tonight?
Howard Deneroff is the czar of Westwood One Radio.
Is he a big guy there?
He is.
He's got good radio hair.
You should know Howie if you
can he get me a job? Is he a guy that
he got me one?
Howard Deneroff?
Deneroff.
Okay, let's say it that way.
But so my role for Westwood One at this draft was to sit upstairs here in the end zone and interview all of the first round picks who were in attendance. And I think there were supposed to be 22, but there was a surprise first round pick in Terrell Edmonds, whose brother was drafted earlier.
He was here.
And they were both here.
Oh, that's great.
It was historic because two brothers have never been picked in the first round of an NFL draft. So we interviewed him. But anyway, so I interviewed nearly 24 players, and one of them was Leighton Vander Esch, and I think we're going to bring that to you.
Okay, let's do that. And what a fun opportunity it is. Leighton Vander Esch sits down with Ed Werder of Westwood One.
We're joined now by Leighton Vander Esch, who was the 19th pick in the NFL draft by the Dallas Cowboys, who are hosting this spectacle here tonight. Give us a little sense of where you've come from to get to this point. I mean, you're from a tiny little town in Idaho, right?
Yep, yeah. The middle of nowhere is where I'm from. Riggins, Idaho. I grew up playing 8-man ball there in high school, and it's been such a journey up into this point, and it's been my absolute dream to play in the NFL, and now that it's actually here and be able to be drafted by Dallas and this organization just means the absolute world to me. I keep telling everybody I don't think it could have went any better tonight.
Why is that?
Because this is where I wanted to end up. This is where I've always wanted to be. I don't think a lot of people have realized that, but this is where my heart and soul has been the whole time.
Why Dallas? Why was Dallas so attractive?
It's the best fit for me. Just atmosphere-wise, the whole city, the facility over at the Star here. This is my first time at AT&T Stadium this week. So talking to the coaches, meeting some of the players, talking to Sean Lee, knowing that I could possibly play by him one day, I just felt like I was the perfect piece of the puzzle, and I felt that deep in my heart.
So the first time you played 11-man football was at Boise State?
Yep. Yeah, it was a little different. It was quite the process just getting there and getting recognized by D1 schools. But I walked on there, and they gave me the chance to play, and I earned a scholarship after like 7 or 8 months. And I mean, the sky was the limit from there. Then it just took off.
Do you sense that the Cowboys kind of just became aware of you this year, or might it have happened over time because you're like the 4th Boise State player they've had on their roster? They have Kellen Moore, Orlando Scandrick, and DeMarcus Lawrence, all from Boise State.
I don't know if it was more so this year or last year. It could have started last year towards the end of the season, but I feel like a lot of it was this year, and I know it was that way for a lot of teams because I was pretty under the radar, and then I was building a name for myself this year, actually starting.
What should the Cowboys or their fans know about the kind of player that you'll be?
I mean, I'm just an extremely hard worker, and I don't take no for an answer, and I want to be the best player I can possibly be, and the best teammate I can be. An ambassador of this program and this organization, and make sure that we're successful. I'm going to do all the work possible to make sure that happens. That's just how I am. That's how I'm wired. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure I'm successful and that the team's successful.
What mindset do you play with when you're on the field?
I play with a chip on my shoulder. I feel like a lot of people have overlooked me my whole entire life. I've dealt with that my whole life, and I think that's just something I have. That's another way I'm wired. I play with that chip on my shoulder. I'm not going to let anybody beat me, and you got to step up in big games.
What's unique about the skill set that you bring to the NFL?
Just being versatile, being able to play wherever they throw me, being able to live up to the expectations and get the job done on the field wherever they put me. Not take no for an answer. Don't make excuses. Just get the job done.
What are your expectations as far as position you'll play and role you'd like to have early in your career?
I don't really have any high expectations right now. Like I said, I want to be the best player I can be, and I know that Dallas is expecting me to do so, especially picking me as their first-round pick. And, I want to come in and contribute as much as I possibly can. I'm going to star in my role wherever they put me. I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to make sure everybody's successful. I want to win Super Bowls, and I want to have fun with everybody doing it and build great relationships and get a lot of respect.
What do you know about the kind of character your defensive coordinator, Rod Marinelli, is?
He's awesome. I've been asked this a few times tonight too, but that guy is awesome. You can tell he loves football. He's a defensive guru. Just talking to him a little bit, I got to talk to him. He's awesome. One of the coolest guys I've ever met. And I'm just excited to be a part of his unit and get going.
Last thing, there were some concerns among some teams, or there were media reports about a cervical issue that caused some teams concern about you. Where did that come from?
I don't know. A bunch of these guys trying to stir the pot, trying to get things go the way they want to go. I don't know. None of them are doctors, so I don't know why they have even any right saying that. But I have absolutely no issues. I don't know where any of that stuff came from. I'm ready to play football now, and the sky's the limit. Let's go.
Well, congratulations, Leighton Vander Esch, the 19th overall pick in the NFL draft by the Dallas Cowboys, and he'll be playing a lot of games here in Jerry World where it's even more lively than it is right now, if you can imagine that. I'm Ed Werder with your continuing Westwood One coverage of the NFL draft.
And there he is, Leighton Vander Esch, who, Ed, I got to meet with Leighton for the first time and visit with him in a little lead up to the draft, the day before the draft, and spent a little time with him and did a little 5-minute interview with him. Obviously didn't have quite the interview you did with him, but I was struck by the length, 6'4", and this is another thing that's going to keep coming up. It appears that Rod Marinelli sat down with him and said, I was with Brian Urlacher, and I think I can make you a lot like Brian Urlacher. That is a player who, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer.
He is a Hall of Famer. He's voted in just a few months ago at the most recent Super Bowl.
I believe he is a Hall of Famer. I've just been told.
I interviewed him at the Hall of Fame.
No, I think he's just gotten in.
Yeah.
I think, Urlacher is one of those, and listen, what's interesting to me is this. He's probably going to play middle linebacker. Belichick is one of the few NFL coaches, and Ed, you've been around Belichick, you've interviewed him before, who likes what's called a thumper. A 6'4", this guy is 6'4", about 260 or 265. This is not the way the NFL is going. I mean, the NFL's going to 6'2", 6'3", 235, Roquan Smith. Chicago Bears, Urlacher played there. Come on down. Come on, play for us. You're a smaller guy who's incredibly
Evans, 6'2".
fast. Rashawn Evans goes 22.
Later, yeah.
And the Cowboys go with the big guy, and they're going to put him in the middle. I mean, what is your...
He's built kind of like a basketball player.
Yeah.
From a football point of
Lanky.
view. Yeah, he's a guy, though, I think that, talking to people over at the Star say that he has the ability to play all three downs, has an incredible football IQ, can cover and play sideline to sideline, can match up with the tight ends, which is obviously an important part of being successful playing defense in the NFC East, because you got, Philly's got Zach Ertz, the Giants have Evan Ingram, Jordan Reed plays for the Redskins when he's healthy, so it's odd. They've typically had, Byron Jones playing against those guys in many situations, but obviously he's now been moved from safety to corner. So I think it's not a surprise that they drafted this particular player. We knew linebacker was an issue for them. They lost Anthony Hitchens. When we interviewed Stephen Jones, he cited as one of the big failures of management last year not having enough linebacker depth to deal with the inevitable Sean Lee injury. I think that Leighton Vander Esch protects them to some degree against a Sean Lee injury, and he also protects them if Jalen Smith doesn't make the quantum leap in his recovery. They're not as vulnerable at that position. But those aren't the only positions where we know the Cowboys have some personnel problems. I mean, they don't have Des Bryant anymore, and they let the two best receivers go off the board. DJ Moore went 22nd to Carolina, and Calvin Ridley went 24 to Atlanta. So they have a wide receiver issue, I think, that they still have to confront going forward. And I think the big question going into day two is, are they in a position to use their second-round pick to try and make the trade for Earl Thomas?
Yeah, that's a huge thing, Ed, and we're going to watch this. Cowboys pick 50th. We know what Seattle was asking for Earl Thomas, 28-year-old Earl Thomas, who has been, in some ways, the heart and soul.
He's a transcendent player. He's not a big personality, but he has incredible range. He's the prototype safety in the NFL right now. He's a ball hawk. He's a guy who, one of the unique things about those Seattle Super Bowl defenses, and in the past 5 or 6 years, they've been one of the great defenses in the history of the league. And really, they were built backwards, from back to front. Most great defenses, even the best Cowboys defenses, were built front to back, defensive line to secondary. These guys were built around the quality of the secondary. And, Richard Sherman told me that nobody studies more, nobody plays with more intensity than Earl Thomas. I remember when the story with Seattle's defense was how big their secondary was. And Richard Sherman said, yeah, there's, three of us are huge players back there, but the little guy, Earl Thomas, he's the best of all of us. And so I think he's the kind of guy who can line people up. He's going to connect the defensive front and the linebackers to the secondary in a way that we haven't seen in recent years. And I think he's going to raise the standard of expectation for their defense. He knows nothing but playing on great defenses. And so I think he would be a great acquisition with the 50th pick.
Yeah, and let's watch it to see what happens, because, Ed, in my mind, as I imagine Cowboys fans out there listening to this and thinking about this, there are some moves that could be made at 50 that would help not totally make up for Des Bryant, but Cortland Sutton's a player from SMU that is Des-like. He's got
bigger
the size.
Than Des. Yeah.
He's got a little bit bigger size than Des, but he's a lot like Des. He's a physical player who can high point the football. I don't think we would classify him as like some incredible route runner at this point in his career, but he is a big, powerful player. Now, he's an incredible guy, like an incredible person. Everybody you talk to, I was struck tonight as I was watching going to this draft. There were coaches that he used to play against. in the ACC, I believe it's called, that were just going on and on about this is the greatest player we ever played against, like Cortland Sutton. So that's one scenario you could go, or you trade this guy and see if Seattle is truly ready to part ways with Earl Thomas. I think from a Cowboys perspective, if they could parlay the 50th pick, and they might have to throw something else in. I mean, they've got a ton of picks in this draft.
Well, Seattle doesn't have a 2 or a 3, or came into this draft without a 2 and a 3. They made a trade in the first round tonight, and they're in a rebuild. Obviously, they've let Sherman go, they've left Jimmy Graham go, they let Michael Bennett go. They don't know if Cam Chancellor is going to come back and play because of the neck injury. So, I think he's readily available. I think they would covet the pick more. I think Jerry's got to decide if he wants to, if he can address the receiver position in a later round. Can he get Sutton in the 3rd round? I don't know why not. He's a pretty raw player. He's kind of like an Alshon Jeffrey. He's just a big physical freak of a guy who's going to body people, like a Michael Irvin. Only Michael Irvin was a first-round pick. This kid is going to take some time to develop, I think. No, I'm with you. But just remember, Alshon Jeffrey is the guy that when we asked the Eagles, you want to look at Dez? And they're like, no, we got Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, Cortland Sutton, now I'm partial to him because he's local. He's an exciting player. I only care about whether they can help you win. Oh, Ed, that's admirable of you. DJ Chalk, watch him, LSU. He's an LSU
Cowboys
wide receiver.
spent a lot of time with him.
Big guy.
And Sutton's the guy that, remember, Jason Garrett ran his pro day, and Sutton, Garrett said to him, how do you want me to do this? Do you want me to push you or not? And he said he wanted to be pushed. So I thought that was the right thing to say, obviously. No, I'd rather coast, if you don't mind, like I know you guys do out there at the country club at the Star. He didn't say that. He wanted to be pushed. So I think that says a lot about the kid. But if you come out of this draft with Vander Esch and Earl Thomas, and Vander Esch can achieve the expectations they have for him, they think he's a guy who's going to create some turnovers. I guarantee Earl Thomas is going to create some turnovers, and he's going to help those young corners, be more effective in the NFL. I think he's worth the 50th pick, and I'd try and do something with the receiver position later.
In the receiver position, I think this is what happened. And when I say this, I wish I could channel you. You were always really good at sort of couching your sources and saying, without like being bravado, like so-and-so told me. But I do know this. I think the Cowboys looked really hard at Calvin Ridley and DJ Moore both. DJ Moore from Maryland, Calvin Ridley from Alabama. And they decided there was no separation between those guys. When I say no separation, that means the guys we mentioned, Sutton, Chalk, whoever else.
Not a huge difference between. I don't think that.
You're totally right. I think they just couldn't find a huge difference on the route stem. Some people say route tree. When you talk to wide receivers coaches in this league, they loved the word stem. That's one thing I've noticed. And they said Ridley, boom, he can plant that foot and get out of the stem. They said DJ Moore from Maryland, run after catch. Huge run after catch guy.
Right, but people I talked to in the league thought it was a challenge for him to create separation and get open at the college level. And so what's going to happen when you're going up against, $12 million corners in the NFL? He'll make the contested catch. And he has to, because all of them are contested. The defender is always right there. And yes, he can run after a catch, but first he has to make the catch. First you have to get the ball to him. Well, we've already seen how that works with Dez and Dak. Dak does not throw the football to a receiver if in his mind the defender has him covered. So you're going to struggle to get those two guys the ball. Ridley's a guy I think a lot of people liked, who thought he could play in a lot of different positions. He could play the X, the Y, the slot, the whole deal, and have an immediate effect. But he's not a big guy. And obviously the Cowboys decided to address that position later on. Whether they're right or they're wrong remains to be seen.
And the thought was with Ridley, Aqib Talib, you think of some of the guys that like to get up on your guy, Richard Sherman, get up there, put their hands on him,
they might have a little difficulty there. It's going to be fun. Now, when we think about who won the first round, when we think about teams that really separated themselves, I got to say this, and I'm a little partial because there's a guy that's taken over with Baltimore after Ozzy's done, and Ozzy's pretty much done with this draft. Ozzie Newsome, Eric DaCosta, who I've known for years. Lamar Jackson, who you interviewed just moments ago, to get him at 32. Now, I know everybody, it's not shocking that there were 5 quarterbacks taken. How many quarterbacks were taken?
5.
5, yeah. 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and Lamar Jackson goes the last pick, and he's in the green room. You and I have both been around some of these drafts where you get some awkward green room moments. Aaron Rodgers was one of them. Geno Smith was one of them. I thought that was great. You got a guy who won a Super Bowl with him, Flacco. It's going to be a little awkward.
It's a weird thing. If you look at their quarterback depth chart, their starter is a fairly immobile guy, totally a pocket passer. Their other veteran quarterback is RG3, who is much more like Lamar Jackson than he is like Flacco, and yet Flacco is a Super Bowl winning incumbent starting quarterback. So I think I don't think Flacco has any guaranteed money after this year, so I think Joe's back in the situation of betting on himself. And this might be his last year as a Raven, I think is what this suggests, because just like Teddy Bridgewater was the 32nd pick of the Minnesota Vikings, the Ravens went up to get Lamar Jackson because you get the 5th-year option on the quarterback. You get to control him for 5 years, which is a big thing at the quarterback position,
huge.
Obviously. If the guy turns out to be a player, saves you a lot of money. And whether he's a good enough passer to play in the NFL and excel in the NFL, I think remains to be seen. We heard what Troy said about him as a runner, that the things he does to defensive players is incredible. He embarrasses them with the ball in his hands all the time. But I still think that most teams did not see Lamar Jackson as a first-round quarterback. We'll see if what the Ravens did pays dividends or proves to be a mistake.
Let's go back over Aikman's big board, the Aikman quarterback big board. Aikman had Darnold first. He had Rosen second. While
Mayfield.
talking to us, he moved Mayfield up to third.
Josh Allen.
He had
fourth.
Josh Allen fourth.
And then he liked the kid from Oklahoma State.
Mason Rudolph fifth. And Lamar Jackson sixth. It'll be fascinating to see. Ed, this Josh Allen thing, you've seen some weird stuff happen late, like in the build-up to draft.
Well, we saw it happen with Warren Sapp, right? There were a report the morning of the draft.
Marijuana tested positive for marijuana. Back when even marijuana was even, it was a lot more of a, now it's kind of like, hey, let's legalize this thing. I mean, at that point, it was like, oh, Warren, what's happened? But
we had the Larry Tunsil thing where he was videotaped.
Gas mask bong.
The gas mask bong.
Yeah.
An infamous moment.
This was the racist tweet.
Right. When he was
from
14,
high school.
15 years old.
Yes.
Not to excuse it by any means. That kind of language should never be used. But it didn't seem to hurt his draft status because he still went 7th, and Buffalo traded up to get him. So I think the thing for Josh Allen with this, the challenge is how does it affect the way he interacts with his teammates initially? Like, is he going to have to walk in there and explain himself to veteran teammates who are African American, or are they just going to let this go without anybody confronting him about it?
What was your time like with him?
It was interesting. He was excited, but subdued. I think clearly that whole thing kind of ruined the moment for him to some extent. But I don't think he felt like he was punished for it in terms of falling in the draft. Obviously, the guy who was a lot more upset about where he went in the draft among the quarterbacks was Josh Rosen, who went 4th overall among the quarterbacks and 10th to Arizona. I think he's excited about the team he's with, but didn't like the circumstances at all.
Well, I was angry. I was really angry. 1, 2, and 3 went through, and I was really pissed off. But for some reason, the second I got that call, all of that went away. and motivation stepped in, and I was relieved and excited that I had teammates again. And I can't wait to step into that locker room with all those guys and get to work.
I think Josh Allen thought some team basically did this to him.
Oh, it couldn't have been a coincidence. It had to be an agent or it had to be a team. And so I guess we have to suspect the Buffalo Bills. They're the ones who traded up to get him. So, but yeah, it was a really bad thing and an unfortunate thing. But ultimately, I don't think it wound up playing a significant role in terms of him falling down the board. He still went about where we thought, and it went to the team we expected was interested in him.
Biggest surprise to you when you looked over this first round and you had prepared for this thing and you knew some of the guys you'd be talking to for Westwood One and the Doomsday podcast? What was the thing that surprised you the most? Yeah.
I think the Saints making the huge move for Marcus Davenport.
A pretty raw player.
The UT San Antonio defensive end, pass rush guy. Yeah, he's obviously got some great potential as a pass rusher. It's the fourth straight year that the Saints have used their first-round pick on a defensive player. But they gave up a lot to get a guy who is coming from a small school. Now the Cowboys have seen that work out. DeMarcus Ware was a pretty good pick from a small school. Troy became one of the elite pass rushers in the history of the game. Obviously, that's the price that the Saints are paying, and that's what they're expecting to get out of Davenport.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see them go up. And in his breakout session with reporters, Ed, I asked him what it felt like it did for him beating a Big 12 team like Baylor, my alma mater. Now, I should add that Baylor went 1-11 that season. So Baylor, it's not like they beat a lot more people, but people did look at that tape. And when they see a team like UTSA compete against historically a pretty good program in a bigger deal, that makes a difference with teams. But boy, Sean Payton, that Saints organization as well as anybody. And I got to say, and Frito and I were in a suite tonight. I went back and forth. I know you were hard at work. I was sort of with some fans, and then I would go back to my morning news stuff. Can I just say this? Some of the Saints fans that were monitoring that Davenport pick, not happy. One guy faked that he would jump out of the suite.
Well, if he was really unhappy, he would have done it.
He chickened out. Yeah, he didn't have the courage to do it. What do you, if you had to, a lot of folks are wanting to say, what does Werder think they're going to do tomorrow? Now that we got the first round over, we'll talk a lot about Vander Esch in the coming weeks. We'll have Vander Esch on Doomsday, as we already have him tonight. You had him on exclusively. What do you see the Cowboys doing tomorrow night? If you had to kind of put your money on it, what do you think the Cowboys do at 50?
I think they'll work pretty hard to see if they can get Earl Thomas for their two or their three tomorrow night. And then I think with the other pick, if there's a wide receiver they like, they'll use it on a wide receiver.
Could you get Thomas and Sutton?
Yeah. I think you could get Sutton in the third round. Let's see if I'm right.
All right, you heard it from Ed Werder, who is wrapping up a big night with Westwood One. Ed, did you enjoy your work with Westwood One?
It was good. It's pretty frantic. I mean, these guys just keep coming at you, and you're like, you don't have time to compile a question list, really. So you have to have some sort of staples about the experience that they had tonight, what it was like to get picked, and have all the uncertainty. But then you do try to have some, questions that are specific to the person involved, and whether that's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or the historic thing about the two Edmonds brothers being drafted in the first round. We did both of them. I liked it, but it happens fast. You only get like 5 minutes to do the interview. So
if you had the opportunity to do it again, you wouldn't turn them down?
I thought it was a great way to meet these guys on their way into the NFL.
I liked it. I liked your preparation. I always do. And then you also had some cards. I don't know what was on those cards. I was kind of sneaking up behind you. You didn't even know I was there. I was watching you tonight to kind of see how you were handling things.
It was the in and the out that has to be we have to.
The intro and the outro.
Yes.
We like to call it in the radio business.
It's all important.
Okay.
The middle part they don't care so much about, but you got to get the intro and the outro right. Outro.
I think someone.
Is that really a word, outro?
The outro is a word in radio.
Give us some more words, Matt.
That is also, that's known as an ender, I think.
Yeah, Ed, you and I had some interesting visits tonight. I felt like we were on the verge of somebody picking up Doomsday.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
Yeah, But I'll tell you what, let's say
just like that guy was on the verge of jumping out of the box, but he didn't do it.
No, there's some folks excited about it. Thanks to everybody. This was unbelievable. Frito, thank you for being out here. Frito Nation Productions has been in jury duty. I don't know if I told you this, Ed.
So this is double dipping.
So he was yeah, I think he's making like
what do you make,
$12
a day over there doing that? Oh, you donated
it. You can donate it. Yeah, he's donating it.
They encourage you to do. You spend all day there, and then they want to shame you into not taking the money.
They're like, would you like to give it to charity? So, Frito, I guarantee you, I don't even know, and he's not allowed to say what this case is about. He's going to try to fry the guy. I can just assure you.
You do not want Frito on your jury.
No, you do not. Ed, good work. And what we'll do on the Doomsday podcast is we reacted to tonight, first night, and then we're going to let the whole draft play out, and then we're going to get together and we're going to react to all of it.
Awesome.
And wrap everything up. And thank you to Frito. Ed, great work tonight. You've done so much good work, and want to say good night live from AT&T Stadium.
Jerry World.
Arlington, Texas. Good night, everybody.
Well, the Christmas lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before.
Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.